Hey, pal. You ready? Can you pick me up at 6:30?
I'm here.
Too late.
I'll go for 5 minutes. Move it. You're killing me. You know what, Dad? I'm good.
It may be quite a while before he's ready, but our Subaru Legacy will be waiting for him.
It's not just a sedan, it's a Subaru.
University Subaru.
The way choice!
Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on this Wednesday, February the 11th. This is Valentine's week. Good to have you here, Mel Zelenak.
Pleasure seeing you.
If you're planning to do some traveling later on this spring or summer, we've got some consumer travel tips for
Today
you.
we're not going to talk about financial planners.
Okay, we're going to talk about saving money with travel.
Saving money with
Airfare
travel.
and cruises, right?
Airfare and cruises. Before we do that, I'd like to make an announcement. I told you last time that we were near being grandparents again, and now we are grandparents. Oliver,
Congratulations.
Oliver Melchior Zelenak was
Oliver
born
Melchior
January
Zelenak.
29th.
Congratulations to you,
My son
Mel.
and his wife, Rachel. So,
Okay. Well, so you're now a proud grandpa again.
again, second
Okay.
time.
So what do we got as far as...
Well, actually, when I was thinking of this part of the program, what the topic would be, I was thinking of how so many things have not changed in the marketplace over 30-some years or whatever. And this was actually my son's T-shirt when he was born, some 29 years ago. And at that time, I said, don't buy whole life insurance. And that's what he wore for a while. And now I'm going to give it to his grandson because it's basically the same idea even now. So conventional wisdom sometimes changes and sometimes doesn't. And that's one example. But with, for example, with cruise lines, I remember telling you repeatedly that if you're booking a cruise, book the airfare separately because it's going to be so much cheaper. That's no longer necessarily true. And you have to check both ways because very, very often, especially on some of the more exotic cruises that you might take, you could save quite a bit of money by going through the cruise line
To book your airfare?
to book your airfare, at least one of the two ways. Let me give you an example. If you were to go on if you wanted to fly back from Barcelona to St. Louis one way, the cheapest price I could find online in the normal places was $2,045 per person.
That's one way.
One way.
Now, it's less expensive if you buy a round-trip ticket. And, of course, those prices vary. They can change hour by hour, too.
Okay.
But generally, buying a round-trip ticket is less expensive than a one-way
But
fare.
there are times, and this is a good example, there are times where you may, for example, with a cruise line, start from one port and end up in another port. So it's pretty hard to buy that round-trip ticket. And by the way, that round-trip ticket is still probably going to cost you more in this example than it would if you were going to do the one-way.
Okay, so what you're saying is check. Do both versions and see which one comes out less expensive.
Yes, and also keep in mind that with the cruise lines now, you do have some added protection because if your plane is late for whatever reason, depending on the cruise line, they will get you to your next port at no additional charge.
If you booked it through them.
If you booked it through them.
But if you booked it on your own, then you're on your own.
Okay, but let's take that. If I were to book a flight on my own, it would cost me $2,045 one way. If I were to book it with Royal Caribbean's Choice Air, for example, that same flight would cost me $491.
Oh, okay. That's a big savings.
That's a substantial savings.
Okay.
So it's better to investigate further, and that is a change from conventional wisdom. And another thing you want to keep in mind is when you're looking at these is determine potential odds of success or failure before you make a travel decision. And let me give you another example to illustrate this point. Cruise lines, for example, will tell you that you should not book a flight back until after usually 11 o'clock or 12 noon back to your home.
And
Okay.
that is because it takes time to disembark from the ship.
Correct.
You can't assume that if the ship is arriving at your port at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be able to catch that flight.
That's exactly right. But here's the rub. Because you could have, in Fort Lauderdale, for example, you could have 15 to 20,000 people disembarking various ships on the same day. Well, getting an air flight out of there at a reasonable price is going to be very, very difficult to do. It's supply and demand. And
Okay.
So the suggestion that I would offer to you is do consider getting out of there earlier than what the cruise line recommends. Now, there are some trade-offs here, but I can tell you, based on my experience and experience of others, if you fly into a port in Florida, typically the ship will arrive about 5 a.m. in the morning. They'll start disembarking between 6 and 7 o'clock a.m. in the morning. In Fort Lauderdale, for example, the cruise ship terminal is about a 10-minute drive taxi from the airport. So we normally book airfares out of there as early as 8:45 in the morning.
Okay,
9:15
but you're an expert too, Mel.
Well, I'm just suggesting to you that that's a conventional wisdom that I would not follow. Now, the trade-off is that if customs is backed up, you may not catch your flight in time. Well, then you also have to look at other alternatives available to you, for example. And like Southwest has 2 or 3 flights that are earlier than 11 or 12 o'clock in the morning, as one example.
I wanted to touch on one thing real quick because we're almost out of time.
Okay.
What are your feelings about hotels are now, and it's becoming very common, that they're charging resort charges for the room, just adding an extra $20 or $30 to your room, and you're not receiving anything extra for it.
That's another way to nickel and dime you. The cruise lines do it. Almost, frankly, the entire marketplace.
The travel industry is doing it.
The travel industry does
Rental cars do it. With everything. Now you can pre-purchase your gasoline with a rental car, which I never do, because even if you go in, you have to decide that you're going to pay for a full tank of gas. Well, maybe you filled it up a day before and you're going in giving them a tank of gas, but you still have to pay for another tank of gas.
That's right, and that's another one that they know the odds better than you do.
Okay, so do your homework on it. Do your homework on it. Mel, we're out of time for today. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you, and we'll pick up some of these next time.
All right, okay. Tomorrow, we're going to deal with Yvonne Matthews, Mabel Grimes, Black History Month. We got some good poems for you. Our program directed by Travis McMillan, Reynolds Journalism Institute. Audio is Pat Akers from KBIA. Our floor director, Lowell Thomas, and our assistant producer and guest coordinator, Uncle James Nelson.